for just about a year, but in the contact center space for nearly 20 years.
Awesome. Pleasure to work with you on this. So, we teed up this event today to talk about Gen AI, but you'll see as the rest of the market has, we are going to go a little bit beyond Gen AI today and talk about just broader application of AI in the contact center. But Gen AI had a moment in 2023. Tim and I were kind of having a laugh about this, that when we look at 2023 or look back at 2023, there was this, it really captured the public's attention. And I think the image I always have in my head of when people started to think they got Gen AI was when ChatGPT launched. Obviously, Gen AI was in existence long before that launch, but it was the moment that everybody said, "Oh wow, I can, plagiarize my essay for school or college," and it became everybody sort of understood the idea of generation, content generation based on some intelligence. 2024 was an interesting year. I think it was a pivotal year for AI in business, despite brands being faced with noise and ever-growing hype around AI. Last year was the year that Gen AI started to get capture the business's attention. People really trying to understand what does this mean for us and what can we do with it. And Tim and I had a few examples that I think are really interesting from last year. I think one especially met Apple and Google with Android and iOS really show. What is the most sort of provocative consumer device that is available to us? It's our phones. So seeing Gen AI being woven into the fabric of operating systems started to really, I think, help businesses understand. Maybe this would help me in the contact center. And I really like this example that Tim and I have here. Shopify, about mid-year last year, let's say last summer, as part of their AI sidekick capability for shop runners, they came up with this tool to use Gen AI to generate discount ad copy effectively. So they were not the first ones to do this, but it was great to see sort of a mass scale platform like Shopify say, hey, we can generate an ad for you in 2 seconds, so you can get sort of results. So I think these things started to really capture the attention of contact centers. And now, last year, Verint launched Copilot bots. This is a great example of many that both Five9 and Verint have in the market around Gen AI for the contact center. And this example is just showing the idea that in the midst of a live customer interaction, that interaction can be summarized using Gen AI. The customer themselves, any background information that you or interaction history you have with that customer can be sort of summarized and put in a pithy fashion so that an agent or a supervisor can quickly read it and understand context around the conversation. So, 2024 was an interesting year. I think heading into 2025, this is really we see significant changes in how brands are looking at AI. I think the bar is now higher. Really is starting to move from hype to what we're really calling business outcomes. Show me the money. Show me that AI is going to help you move the needle in a positive direction. And that's really what Tim and I want to focus on today.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason. And I love from the examples that you started with that it's a mix of internal use cases within a contact center, for example, for the Verint coaching bot where you give real-time guidance to an agent, which is kind of an internal use case. But then we also showed Shopify where there are actual, exposing these Gen AI models to end customers. So it's a little bit of a preview for where we're going and how we're marching up the maturity curve of using Gen AI in the contact center, where initially we saw largely internal use cases. And now in 2025, we're more and more seeing these exposed to end customers. And we're going to get into that. But I thought this was a useful Gartner study that is hot off the press just from 30 days ago, December of last year, highlighting that you as customer service leaders are really on the hook for driving AI strategies. And relative to the IT function, who of course is naturally responsible for building and executing and running these AI models, you as customer service leaders are at the tip of the spear for identifying the AI opportunities, identifying the roadmap for how they will evolve, and then driving adoption. So that's why for this webinar, we're going to help you with this. We're going to help you think through an approach and strategy for how and when to deploy Gen AI in the contact center. And I mean, you've told us that you're ready. The headline, in fact, for that Gartner study, which is just 30 days old, shows that 85% of customer service leaders, you all, will explore or pilot customer-facing conversational Gen AI in 2025. And this is an interesting pivot because I think in 2023 and 2024, we were showing that largely they were internal use cases, agent summarizations, maybe real-time guidance for an agent, AI-driven analytics, where we were not quite ready to expose these Gen AI models to end customers via self-service because concerns around hallucinations and the ability to implement effective guardrails on data. But that's beginning to change. And I think 2025 is where we're really going to see this accelerate, where we're applying Gen AI in a controlled, guardrailed fashion to these self-service models. And you've got concerns at the same time for data quality, and I'm sure your board is going to hold you accountable for ensuring that the investment dollars they give you to deploy Gen AI are going to generate value. When you report back in the next 8 to 12 months, are you going to be able to demonstrate the business value, demonstrate that you've been able to control risks and not have runaway costs? So given these concerns, which are very logical, everyone should have these concerns before adopting Gen AI in the contact center. This will get to our recommendation for being very targeted in your approach. Not to, to bury the lead, but that's where we're going here, is to be very specific as to where you're going to apply Gen AI to control for these concerns. And at the bottom there, Gartner even puts a red flag that say 30% of Gen AI projects could fail during 2025 because these concerns weren't adequately controlled. So it's something that we need to keep an eye on. Jason, over to you.
Yeah, for sure. I love that you cited the Gartner research around self-service and the customer-facing conversations, because I think, as rote as it may sound, just as Gen AI now seems like old hat, like, sure, okay, what else? Tell me something more interesting. Conversational AI had the same moment. I feel like I've been talking about conversational AI for 7 or 8 years, and it's still, for some businesses out there, and if you're one of those businesses, don't feel bad. There are still businesses that are just now kind of having their first experiences and results and positive impacts from having self-service for customer conversations. So, Tim is citing that great content from Gartner last month, talking about sort of customer-facing conversation powered by AI. And self-service is a place where a lot of contact center leaders have kind of seen the initial business outcomes that they really wanted to see. They've seen things like reducing, increasing containment rate. So this is not putting the stiff hand up and saying, I don't want to talk to you, Mr. or Mrs. Customer. This is just saying, I don't need to talk to you because you've already got the answer that you wanted, and you don't want to talk to me. So, the reality that AI is driving higher containment rates, meaning that customers are getting what they need without having to escalate to a human. They don't need staff to pay attention to them. They're getting their issues resolved quicker. You see first contact resolution on the right-hand side. If you squint your eye, effectively what we've seen, this is from a franchise report that Barrett does every year. It's called the State of Customer Experience. And we published this towards the end of last year. And the TLDR here is that self-service has started to show businesses that you can double the effectiveness of a channel by adding AI. Just even simple conversational AI that Tim will start to walk through this in a few minutes. If you follow a solid framework of leveraging the data and the insights that you have about what customers need and want from you, you can instantly double the impact of these channels. I think the most interesting thing for me here is off to the right, seeing that first contact resolution more than doubled for voice. And so, voice is typically thought of as like, oh, I have to offer phone calls for customers. We still have letter writers, so we still occasionally get a fax or two. We have to have the phones on. But I think this is showing, conversational AI has kind of gone around the bend and back and shown that voice can really be massively, exponentially more impactful and more efficient with AI underneath it. Go for it.
I can just compliment what you're saying. I think this, it occurs to me that it's important as you anticipate getting these good outcomes to make sure that you have the baseline. Because when you report back to the board, in 8 to 12 months to see what is the benefit of applying Gen AI in your self-service, you want to make sure you have that anchor, baseline, containment rate data so that you have something to measure it against. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, look, Tim and I are going to talk about much more than self-service and conversational AI, but it's something that we've all been talking about, no matter how sophisticated or sort of, newbie your business is. The Let's just take a moment to look at some of the results that Tim and I have seen in our respective customer bases. So, just driving containment rates alone, look at the financial impacts. We talk about business outcomes, AI-driven business outcomes. AI outcomes look like this. So an insurer that works with Parent has about 10 million digital interactions a year. They're seeing 67% containment rate through conversational AI. So that's resulted in about a $10 million annual savings for them in terms of opening up additional bandwidth for their staff to do other work, to focus on more customers, to upsell, to do any number of other tasks that would have previously been absorbed by longer conversations and more interaction with customers. We have a travel firm with a slightly less volume, 95% containment rate, and that's resulting in about $6 million annually. They're a pretty small team. And a bank seeing 10 million digital interactions, reaching 80% containment rate, and also getting around $10 million in annual savings. So these containment rates are very much achievable. And Tim's got this great study with Arkansas Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Yeah, so a very specific example of a customer that we had on a panel actually at Barrett Engage, the event in Orlando back in last September, where of course the theme of the event was business outcomes and the importance of AI really of course as the means to that end. So we really dove down into what outcomes are you seeing. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Arkansas, Noel Tabranco, who's pictured on the left there, was part of our panel. Had a great example of how they inspected the business very effectively and identified a pain point at the front end during the authentication process of members that are calling into Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And in particular, I mean, the authentication was sort of incomplete, so that they found that agents were spending the first 30 to 45% or 30 to 45 seconds of a call just authenticating that member. So that was a great opportunity for them to introduce some automation for the authentication process so that they're in a self-service realm. The members are fully authenticated so that when they're connected to an agent, they're off and running with the issues. And as a result of this, they were able to shave 30 seconds off of their average handle time. So kind of a specific example there.
And this particular example that Tim's showing, like Tim, I love this because it's exactly what we're talking about. It's like having a sort of an element of conversational AI on a channel do one thing can shave off 30 seconds off of an interaction. Now, if your average interaction time is 5 or 6 minutes, that's pretty impactful. You're immediate. That's just doing that one thing can shave 20-30% off the interaction time, and that frees up all kinds of opportunities for staff to be doing other things, much less stressing them out less, right? So very, very cool. I love that. It's a great example of having automation do one thing. It's going to be a big theme as we get later into this webinar. Don't underestimate the power of doing simple things. I mentioned a couple minutes ago that Barrett does this sort of franchise research every year. We're in our 6th year of doing this data customer experience report. This latest one that we published back in November of last year, 60 days ago. One of the many things we asked business leaders was, in the next 12 months, how are you thinking about AI, and how are you sort of looking to AI to significantly change how you engage with customers? What impact do you think it'll have? And so where businesses are starting to prioritize things, sure, you're going to see things like Tim and I just talked about, AI-powered bots for customer self-service, just like Gartner cited. So they were right. Automated customer interactions, interaction routing, a little more sophisticated, but still based on the customer interaction and kind of an extrapolation of conversational AI. Then you start to see the lens turn inward. Right now, it's about automating context, suggested knowledge for agents, so giving staff more dynamic feedback during a customer interaction. Hence the topic du jour, generative AI for knowledge summarizations. This is not just the stuff we showed the Shopify. This is actually generating new knowledge that the organization, especially agents at the front line of customer conversations, can use. And so it's not static; it's actually ever growing. It's responding to the state of the business as customer conversations happen. And then you get into what I think are really advanced, at black belt level AI implementations, where you've got intelligence around your workforce forecasting and scheduling. This is something that Tim and I are super excited about. So I think it's interesting to see that, sure, the most common use case is 60%, 53% of respondents are talking about customer-facing stuff. But for the first time, we're starting to see more 25, 30%, 40, close to 50% of this year's investments are going to be focused inwards. Back office, agents, supervisors. It's the other half of customer engagement. And that's really where we are seeing businesses that are starting to see AI business outcomes now. This is what they're doing. They're using open platforms. They're leveraging AI and data to move the needle for all sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Parts of the organization, right? So back office, agents, the front lines with customers, and both Five9 and Verint are really partnered very much because we have this open infrastructure that allows us to sort of kind of share the best of both worlds to help our customers see AI business outcomes now. Now, CX automation is kind of where we see everything headed. So this is really a term, and I would say arguably a thing. It's become sort of a key piece of CX strategy and the key piece of any critical infrastructure for your contact center. CX automation is really going beyond that, the conversational AI element, and starting to look at how do you actually automate key pieces of the entire customer experience, from the initial interaction to wrap up and beyond. Anything that's going to improve the customer experience, no matter how far-reaching or how much integration is needed. Businesses are starting to invest in AI for this, actually moving the needle in terms of customer experience. Gen AI is a piece of that. But as you'll see today, Tim and I will sort of start to explore this. It's beyond that. So some of the stuff we saw in the State of Customer Experience report are that businesses are really already starting to double down on the idea of CX automation. So 52% of our business respondents to this research back in November are saying that AI is a key part of their CX strategy. 84% of those businesses are saying they're increasing their CX investment, their CX technology investment. And a lot of that is driven by the fact that they've had early successes with conversational AI. As Tim was showing, that Gartner research pointing to the fact that this is where the groundswell of power is coming to the contact center, because they were the ones that pushed for these sort of examples of good conversational AI to reduce inbound volume and keep their teams sane and stable. But this is 2025, and we still have latecomers planning to join the party. Again, if you're on this call and your team or your business, you feel like is somewhat lagging in terms of investing in AI, don't feel bad. As long as you do something in the next 12 months. Over 3/4 of businesses that we polled are not using AI for self-service. Plan to in the next 12 months. So we see that this is the year where in fact, just off script, Tim, just after we spoke yesterday, I had a call with a customer of ours who told us that they have a C-suite mandate by January of 2026. They need to get their platform completely updated. So it's real, and AI is a big piece of that. 47% of people are saying that they don't use AI for self-service yet. So that number keeps coming down. I think the last year when we showed this, it was 51. So less and less businesses have not yet, dipped their toe in the water for AI, for conversational AI, let's call it. But 76% of those businesses plan to adopt AI in the next 12 months, at least for self-service.
Absolutely. So the data is very clear that we're hammering home here is that 2025 is the year where Gen AI is going to be exposed to end customers via self-service. And even it was instructive in the survey slide that you showed a few slides earlier, Jason, where the top ranked use case was 60%. The top one was self-service. Last year probably wouldn't have been that way. So this is the year, and I think it's because the market at large is getting more comfortable with the guardrails that can be put in place to control the use of Gen AI and to control the hallucinations in the data that's fed in a way that can mitigate risks. So I think trust in these tools, in the studio tools that we make collectively, Verint and Five9 make available, are clearly having an impact in giving the market confidence that you can expose these Gen AI tools responsibly. And in fact, if you're not doing it, you really need to, because the competitive pressures will drive you to.
Totally. And why don't you talk about some of the things that are kind of driving this lag in some businesses actually investing here?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think having these concerns and wrestling with these types of concerns is healthy, and it has to be the first step before deploying these. So what is the business value that you're going to realize from and commit to the board for developing, putting Gen AI into your CX platform? What are the outcomes that you're looking for? I mean, there are very real barriers to integrations with existing systems and data. Costs are an unknown. Governance to ensure unbiased, accurate results. These are all very valid concerns. And I think our point of view here is that one size certainly isn't going to fit all. So the more targeted you are in your approach to providing a solution via Gen AI or a variant bot, for example, to solve for an observed challenge is going to be your best bet to address these concerns. So, for example, if you're finding that in the self-service realm, customers in certain topics are going through endless IVR loops and are not, there's a high abandon rate, and there's poor sentiment for the self-service before it even lands with an agent, then this is an area where you could deploy AI agents for Gen AI self-service, and perhaps tailored and tuned to specific topics that are most commonly asked about. And the more targeted you are, the more effective you can be to take that particular bot, for example, and in the variant realm, and apply it to that use case that you've spotted, that there's a challenge, you have the baseline data, and then deploy the solution and then measure the outcomes against that baseline data is the best way to think about and address these challenges and these concerns. Because I think if you're not sort of wrestling with this stuff already, you have to be, because the market at large is doing that, and there's going to be a gap. If you sit in the sidelines for too long here and don't really think about Gen AI for self-service, likely others are, and the risk there is being left behind.
And even those first two items as kind of rationales for what has held businesses back, there's no shame in those two. I think not knowing where to start. I've heard that more often than not, that there's still a analysis paralysis of knowing where to start. I think, Tim, you've got a great framework for how to kind of break that paralysis.
Yeah, so when I speak to customers, it's very clear to me that those who realize the best outcomes do two things almost without exception. They're very good at inspecting the business continually, and they're very good at making adjustments based on the inspection. And it's a continuous loop. I have many examples that we've talked about in various forums of the ability to understand and use Gen AI tools to do the inspection process. What are the top topics that are surfacing in an unbiased fashion? What are the operational metrics against those topics? What are the customer sentiment metrics against those topics? To try to understand where are the pain points. Is it in the front end of the call, in the self-service realm, where IVR time is either non-existent or way too long? Are there call durations for certain topics, for example, that are inordinately long, that might benefit from real-time agent assist to coach agents through that are tailored for that specific topic that you noticed? Or after call wrap up, is it non-existent, or is it really long? Can it inform you on where the pain points are and where the challenges are? Because you can't solve your problem, and prove to your business at large that the Gen AI is working unless you're very specific on what the area is that you want to address. And this is where we anchor this concept in our Gen AI process, which is a 4-step process of listening and analyzing, which is all about that inspection part. You have to inspect the business. And then the bottom half of the process, tailoring and applying, is all about taking what you've learned from the inspection, the pain points, and being very specific with the right bot, whether it's the time flex bot or quality bot or other, that it's addressing the pain point, whether it's the self-service realm, live agent assist realm, or even back office operation realm. The more targeted you're going to be, the more likely you're going to achieve a successful outcome. And that's kind of the net of what we're trying to convey here. And just to walk through very briefly this 4-step process, and highlighting a few technology elements. So listen is all about gathering the data. So we're here, we're inspecting the business, we're ingesting all the conversational data, both the real-time voice and the digital transcripts. And the Five9 platform, of course, makes this real-time data and media available to partners, including Verint, where this is part of our new native cloud-to-cloud integration that we just announced in September of last year. Five9's cloud is tightly linked into and integrated with the Verint cloud products, utilizing voice stream and transcript stream. So in a real-time fashion, the voice is flowing from Five9 to Verint so that we can capture the raw data, what is being said, the voice of the customer and the voice of the employee, so that we can have that baseline of information on which to do analysis and analyze as sort of that next step of the process. And key, we're still in the inspection process, and you can use Gen AI for this inspection process, where you can use it to surface what are the top topics that are bubbling up on an automated fashion, so it's completely unbiased. Of course, when we search for specific topics and we search for the prevalence of certain terms, we bring our own bias to the table. But Gen AI is fantastic at analyzing these large bodies of conversational data and saying, gosh, if these are your top 5 topics, this topic has got a bit of an issue because your handle times are 5x all the other topics, and customer sentiment is really poor. So, okay, that's an area that I need to focus on. So perhaps for that topic, I can apply and tailor a real-time agent assist model so that when that topic happens, I'm surfacing relevant real-time coaching tips to my agents, because that's been tripping them up, and I can be very targeted in the data that I'm feeding that real-time assistance to address that specific topic. And that's where we get into using this data to identify where are the pain points. So as we do this inspection process and as we ingest all the data from conversational engagements, we can identify the opportunities to reduce costs and drive efficiencies. Understanding what's driving, what are the really great calls, what are the automatic topics that are being surfaced where customer sentiment is very, very positive, because this can give you an insight into what are the behaviors and characteristics of those agents that are being successful. So you can build that into training and coaching methods. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but the idea here is that the more data that you can capture as part of that inspection process, the more informed you will be about what area, whether it's self-service, live agent assist, back office, forecasting, scheduling, is most is needed for improvement in the form of AI. And to kind of view through the lens of inspecting the customer journey, where we can, through a kind of an e-commerce or model where your commerce, care, support, refunds, you can understand where's the bottleneck in the customer journey. Blue Cross Blue Shield, incidentally, did the same type of customer journey analytics. You realized they had a bottleneck with one of the billing systems. Payments were not being processed because there was a broken system, and the contact center was the first one to know about this because everyone was calling up about it. So Noel was able to, they get on the phone with IT and they address that bottleneck straight away by having them fix the broken process. So armed with this data, will allow you to really deploy in a very targeted fashion the AI solution that's going to work best. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, customer service leaders are on the hook for driving adoption and making sure agents are trained on how to best utilize these tools. And I think we're going to observe that, okay, agents are not going to be replaced by AI, but agents might be replaced by other agents who are better trained on AI. So as part of that application process, of course, leaders are responsible for ensuring the tools are used. And we had a customer, interesting example where they deployed the latest forecasting and scheduling tools with WFM, but no process was changed, no training happened. So it was still taking 3 days to create a schedule in WFM. And only through the inspection process did a new leader come in to say, hey, we're not best utilizing the system. We need to train our staff to utilize AI forecasting and scheduling. And then the time it took to generate a forecast went from 3 days down to 75 minutes. So the training is a key element here.
Yeah, and example you showed with Blue Cross Blue Shield, just aiming AI at a single place, the customer journey, the example Tim just showed around, that sort of, the moment of retention, all of these are just examples of using that Genius framework to hone in on one thing that can move the needle. And the reason that we're talking so much about this is I think when we think about some of the reasons that businesses have lagged behind in terms of their investment in AI in the contact center, some of it is just over-rotating on how much you need to achieve all at once or being obsessed with catching up. It's very much about moving at your own pace and doing this and one of the things I love, Tim, about your framework for Genius AI at 5.9 is it's really preaching agility. I joked with Tim when we first started working on this. This is very much the agile process. This is how, if any of you from product development or technology development, you'll remember that the agile frameworks are all about analyze, build, build, analyze, sort of design and repeat, and kind of continue to be in that loop of improvement. Continual improvement is really what it's about. So a lot of what 5.9 and Parent have done is make AI consumable in bite-sized chunks, so you can actually apply AI in very, very specific ways and grow at your own pace. And so what we're going to show you now is kind of some examples of what that looks like. So what both 5.9 and Parent are able to offer customers is specialized bots that are meant to augment your team. So each bot does one thing and one thing really, really well, and it doesn't do anything else. And it's meant to be sort of modular, so you can actually say, okay, I have this friction point around authentication, as Tim cited at the beginning of the webinar, and you can have something that just does that. So we'll show you some examples here. So I'm going to show you just a smattering examples. There's upwards of 80 or 90 of these examples out there now, but performance scoring is one of them. So this is the idea that you can have a sort of applied AI that's going to continually evaluate agent performance on customer interactions in real time. So as interactions are happening, that bot is sitting behind the scenes, analyzing transcripts for digital and voice interactions, and starting to flag not only the interaction itself, but moments of the interaction that can be used for ongoing coaching, training, things like that. This has huge value, and we'll touch on this in a moment. Another one is compliance scoring. So while it may not sound sexy, even the authentication use case doesn't on the surface sound very exciting, but all of these things either are preventing risk or they are saving time and money. So authentication is both. It's preventing risk, but it's also saving time that humans would have had to do in the loop with customers to make sure that they are who they are. Compliance scoring is really reducing the potential for compliance fines and eliminating the manual effort in doing that. So it's helping to try and score in real-time interactions where agents may be sort of out of compliance and providing that real-time guidance on what they should do, and also flagging these conversations for analysis later so that there's not manual sifting through those conversations that might need oversight. There's going to be a queue of the ones that might be the most impactful ones that have to be reviewed, all being powered by AI prioritization. The sentiment bot, it's detecting and scoring the sentiment of customer interactions. Again, across voice and digital, scoring the sentiment, whether it's improved, it's degraded, and what the ultimate score is, and using this as a barometer for a team, a specific agent, a queue, an entire contact center compared to another one. Again, another input into how you can move the needle. The PII redaction bot. So thinking again about that authentication. So, this is such a very specific thing, but businesses have spent, especially about those who have launched conversational AI, PII redaction is a huge, huge risk. And actually, there was even a question, I think, in the chat that kind of echoes this a bit. But this is really automatically redacting any kind of personal information from transcripts so that, number one, so that agents don't see it. You're not exposing risk for the agent to suddenly know something they shouldn't have. You're removing the opportunity for that customer's information to be sort of displayed on screen for employees. But it's also removing from the transcript. It's not going into your AI models. It's specifically being removed. And so, again, removing risk. The interview bot. So this is automating the interview process. This is huge for the contact center. Obviously, ideally, you want to retain staff and not have to do this as much as you may be doing, but this is something that is really trying to add some level of AI predictive sort of outcomes to identify the best candidates to hire. And as you bring people on board, TimeFlex bot, empowering agents with unlimited autonomous shift changes. This is huge, and we'll touch on this in a few minutes. Last but not least, workload forecasting bot. So you've hired, you've scheduled, now you need to sort of make sure you stay ahead of workload demands. So this is algorithmic forecasting of how you need to apply and staff your team, given peaks and troughs throughout the day or week. So each of these can be bought individually, they can be bought all together, but then hopefully it gives you a sense of what Tim and I mean by starting small and applying AI at your own speed. It's not, this 2025 is not the year that you need to do everything and make up for lost ground over the past 3 or 4 years. It's identifying, and if you go back to his Genius framework, it's identifying key points of friction and applying them. So I want to kind of just share a little bit of details about each of these. So TimeFlex is one of my favorites. This is that Verint launched last year, and Five9 is now offering this to their customers. Being able to deliver basically unlimited schedule changes. So this is taking a process that typically takes a shift-based worker like an agent in the contact center could take upwards of 72 hours to get approval for a shift change. I need to take my dog to the vet on Thursday. It's Monday. I don't know if I'm going to get this approved in time. Sometimes things happen the same day. My kid is sick and I need to go pick him up from school. That's an intraday change. And typically and historically, those types of changes, either agents don't want to do them because they're worried it's going to affect their employability, or it's just something that's just not possible. It's taking too much time and has too much impact on that shift. So being able to have the ability to give that flexibility to shift-based workers, it lowers the cost of attrition. It lowers attrition in the first place. It lowers planned absences because people are able to sort of say, I'm going to use this time. I need to do something for my personal life, but I'm doing it at a time that AI has told me that's okay. We have a way to back this up. Go take the time you need. I think the biggest thing is, and this is a very soft sort of outcome, but this is what we're seeing is this is actually increasing. It's increasing retention. So one of our telecom companies is using TimeFlex or the TimeFlex bot to allow for the agents to actually perform these unlimited schedule changes. They've seen improved month-to-month attrition by 24%. So this means that 24% less employees are leaving. This is huge, and for any of you in the contact center, it's a known entity that this is a somewhat high turnover in these types of jobs. So being able to reduce that stress level, give employees the flexibility to do what they need to do when they need to do it, almost 25% improvement in attrition. So that's incredible.
And Jason, it's instructive that we have one customer that's using the TimeFlex bot as a recruiting tool. Come be an agent at our contact center because we give you control over your schedule. They're using it in their own marketing to recruit talent, which is cool. Which is instructive, right? I mean, clearly they're showing value in this day and age. I mean, you have to give flexibility to your workers. So yeah, really excited about TimeFlex bot. I'd love to just give an example of a quick story about Penn Medicine, who Beth Severe, who was the gentleman second from the left at our panel at Verint Engage as well. And he, with Penn Medicine, had very, very good success with quality bots because with an automated quality management system, they were able to deduce that when patients were calling in with kind of some scary diagnoses, that unfortunately this is a very common occurrence, and agents tended to get a little bit numb to it. So they spotted an opportunity with quality bots for soft skill training for empathy and how to address patients who are in a very kind of scary part of their journey, how to address them with more empathy. And this was an example of a soft skill that really moved the needle on ultimately for agent satisfaction and agent retention. So they saw their percentage of employees that had 1 year tenure increase from 44% to 60%, in part because of these new tools and these new coaching tools that they're being provided from, in this case, from Verint and the quality bot. And we all know that attrition continues to be an important issue in driver for that is lack of coaching. So to the extent that you can use AI to extend, you don't have limitless resources for QA managers. To the extent that you can lean on a tool like Quality Bots from Verint to help identify these opportunities, the agents can benefit and translate that into real impacts very quickly.
Yeah, there's so much value here. I love that story about using it as a recruiting tool. TimeFlex, we had one contact center when they launched it, the agents were cheering. They were actually in a physical, in-person contact center. They were all cheering. But yeah, quality is a whole other sort of arena where there's value to every aspect of the business. Now, both Verint and Five9 are selling quality bots in various flavors. So, Tim, you're talking about quality bots that can actually drive sort of recommendations to the agent in real time. And then there's also sort of aspects of the quality bot that can be more about the sort of automating the evaluation process. So how are we doing, and then making recommendations sort of after the interaction. So more queuing up personalized training and improvement tactics. So the quality bot is a multifaceted piece here, not only delivering that real time sort of supervision for the agent and real time guidance, but giving supervisors a lot more flexibility and freedom, reducing their overall workload, allowing them to do a lot more to be in the trenches with their staff, and knowing that they've got AI kind of flagging the things they need to pay attention to, instead of actually doing really highly repetitive work and manual sort of compliance evaluations, which, sure, I'm sure the quality bar is very, very high in terms of the evaluation, but they can't get through them all. So it's saving time. It's enhancing the quality program because it's avoiding those errors. It's looking at every single sample. It's 100% of call and digital interaction coverage, and it's avoiding those compliance risks. Both Five9 and Verint have a number of customers using this. So, healthcare brand automating 100% of evaluations, increasing supervisor capacity by a third. So that's just huge. That is huge. And this is not to get rid of supervisors. I want to be really clear. This is not AI that is replacing people. It is augmenting people. So with 33% more bandwidth, supervisors are able to do more. They're able to actually spend actual time with the staff that needs that help and sort of almost hand deliver some of that training. So we have great stories in the field of what is happening with this extra bandwidth. We have an auto and life insurer who is also doing 100% of evaluations, increasing their supervisor capacity by about 30%. Then we have a telecom company that's evaluated 1.8 million interactions without adding resources. Again, it's not about firing people. It's not about eliminating or redundancies. This is just about doing more with what you have. So I love that stat about $4 million savings, because we're able to do more with the team that we already have, our rock stars that are currently on staff. The interviewing bot is the last one I'll sort of spend time kind of going into, because I think you all get it. But the idea that obviously you're trying to increase retention and keep the staff that you have, but hiring hasn't gone away. So this is really kind of helping fill those openings faster with higher performing candidates. So it's reducing the time that it takes to hire, reducing that attrition, because you brought in better people that you know are fit for the long haul. And I think increasing recruiting capacity, again, the idea that people are not sort of reviewing every single aspect of an application. Some of that is scary. Some of it's not. There are some things that people just should not be doing. And so the interviewing bot is actually taking elements of a recorded real-time interview and analyzing that, and actually giving the interviewer afterwards some sort of scoring points and things that they can use as a starting point to say, how does that compare to the other 30 people I interviewed today? It's just sort of reducing cognitive load for the interviewing staff. Now, we've got a number of stats here. A large retailer reducing hiring costs by 50%. Global outsourcer conducting 2,000 evaluations per month, reducing the application review time by 40%. But again, it's really about doing more with what you have.
Now what we're trying to do
So these are kind of
is
three
we should
examples
have
of some of the
driven a
7
lot
or 8
more.
bots that Tim and I are showcasing today. Again, Five9 and Verint have upwards of 80 or 90 of these very bite-sized, modular, applied AI elements that you can add together or individually at your own pace. I think thinking back to the way that Tim kicked us off with those Gartner stats, again, self-service has been this thing that, what did we say down to? I guess 53% of businesses, according to Verint's data, have implemented some form of AI-powered self-service. And what we saw, this is the last stat I'll share from that customer experience, the state of customer experience report, is that those early experiments with self-service has given contact center leaders confidence that AI is going to help them move the needle. I think what they saw here was that conversations were much more efficient and effective across both digital and voice when they compared conversations without AI to those that had AI. So this has been something that we drew out of the research, because this is something a lot of people were saying they were showing to their C-suites to make the case for implementing AI elsewhere in the business. So super, super compelling. And I think a lot of this is really about thinking about AI outcomes now. It's not about waiting, making monolithic science projects out of implementing AI in the contact center. It's finding these, again, thinking about, Tim, your genius framework, and trying to find those moments of truth, those points of friction, those key opportunities, chasing those first and doing them early and often. Chase one, show that you solved it, move on to the next. I think more and more we're seeing businesses move away from these massive monolithic projects. It's about sort of tangible outcomes now. And everything that Tim and I have shown today is very much about increasing agent capacity. Increasing self-service is it's not a dirty phrase. We're not saying that there's any shame in that. Like 47% of businesses from our survey still not done that. So there's still a lot of green space there, or white space, whatever call you want to choose. And evaluating the employee experience and the customer experience. All of these things can be done in bite-sized chunks. Start small with one of these specialized bots. No need to rip and replace what you have. And Tim and I are pleased to kind of talk about our cloud-to-cloud integration between Five9 and Verint. So again, you're not taking infrastructure out and replacing things to get the benefit of AI in your contact center. You're increasing your ability to experiment now. I hope this was valuable. So should we look at some questions?
Yeah, but perhaps we can turn it back to Eric to round us out, and then definitely get into questions.
Definitely. So thanks guys, great job. Really appreciate all that terrific information. I wanted to really quickly push out a slide for y'all. Part of what we're doing here is letting people know about what Verint and Five9 are going to be doing at Enterprise Connect. So wanted to make sure you know, and those of you who are going to Enterprise Connect or thinking about going to Enterprise Connect, wanted to let you know Verint's going to be there. They're going to be in booth 626, and they're also going to be speaking on a couple of the panels within the conference, and not surprisingly, both dealing with AI. They're going to be on the future of customer interfaces, about how generative AI is elevating conversational AI. I think essentially what we've been talking about here today, and then also navigating the hurdles to build a future-proof AI roadmap, which a lot of enterprises are definitely concerned about in terms of making sure you don't make the wrong investments in the relatively early going of AI. So Five9 also is going to be there. They'll be in booth 1311. They're going to be on a number of panels relating to CX, as well as some issues that I think we'll definitely touch on AI as well. Journey analytics really, I think, is something that we've sort of been talking about here really. So I want to just let everybody know real quick about what you can expect to hear from our sponsor here, and what they'll be talking about in Enterprise Connect. And that's, for those of you who don't know, Enterprise Connect is going to be March 17th through 20th at the Gaylord Palms Resort in Orlando. If you sign up with the code that you've got here, you can get a $300 discount on a conference pass. These slides are available, so if you don't memorize the promo code there, you can download the slides. So we appreciate everyone listening, and of course we appreciate Verint and Five9 being at Enterprise Connect in just a couple of months. So now let's jump into some questions, and I want to start with a question that that somebody submitted that I think goes back. We were talking earlier about the sort of investigation phase, or the kind of the phase where you're really trying to get a handle on what your data is, get it, I guess, inspection rather than investigation. Get the right data into the platform. And a question comes in about the concern over data security that a lot of enterprises have, and that could be what holds a lot of enterprises back, and being wanting to be assured that their data isn't going to leak or go in the wrong place, or otherwise be misused. So I wonder if you could each talk maybe a little bit about how, as part of that whole inspection phase and the phase of sort of gearing up for AI, you deal with data security.
Yeah, I think one of the best practices that Tim and I would probably put out there is that, and this was especially poignant and relevant with Gen AI, is that your AI models really need to be, you can use open source libraries, you can use proprietary libraries, you can use these various models and LLMs, but they need to be in their own walled garden for your business, especially with Gen AI, whether it's GPT, or another, sort of another stack. One of the things that both Marin and Five9 do is we offer GPT instances, so that Gen AI is only looking at federated content that it should have access to. I think the early problems with Gen AI and data security was that, yes, I think to the question, it was looking at content that it really shouldn't be leveraging under the premise that it might actually blurt that out as a response, and it could be PII, it could be trade secrets, it could be, who knows what it could be. But it also made hallucinations on things that really are not relevant to the company and their policies. So it's very important to, I think the old phrase of garbage in, garbage out, thinking about what does this thing have at its disposal to generate responses from, and making sure that stuff is relevant to your customer base and to your business. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I just add on to that. I think one of the reasons that Gen AI is going to accelerate 2025 for customer-facing self-service tools is because of the improvements in the studio design tools that we have, that CCAS vendors are bringing collectively to the market to allow for these guardrails that Jason is talking about. The guardrails are key to ensure that you're training and serving data into your Gen AI models with a corpus of data that you're comfortable with surfacing. And I think we advise customers to be a little bit even on the conservative side initially, to mitigate risks from hallucinations. And the way that you're successful in doing this is doing inspection on the business, understanding what topics, for example, are creating the most issues, most bottlenecks, longest durations, worst sentiment, and figuring out through inspection what are the areas that you need to strengthen either your self-service models, your Gen AI agents models, or even your real-time agent assist with specific pieces of data that will help break the friction for those specific topics, and then making sure that corpus of data is constantly kept up to date and refreshed. And this is going to be a new role that we're going to see emerging in the contact center, where it's not set it and forget it. You have to make sure that the data that you're serving into these models is constantly refreshed. And I envision, I don't think we're seeing it widely yet, but we should, that we have new roles making sure that the data that we're serving into these Gen AI models, the guardrailed data, is kept up to date and is not static. So controlled, targeted deployments.
Absolutely.
Great. And I'll just, we've got time for one short question. Do you have any examples of AI deployments in contact centers that weren't successful, and what was learned from those experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I think I alluded to it earlier in the presentation, but to me, the most successful customers, again, do two things really well. They constantly inspect the business and make adjustments in a targeted fashion to address the pain points noted in the inspection process. We had one customer that deployed premise-based contact task management team wasn't trained on how to best utilize the AI forecasting and scheduling. And as often happens when you have a team that's very long tenured in their specific functionality, when you introduce change, new tools, new technology, there's resistance to that. So what was previously taking 3 days to build a schedule, we're still taking 3 days to build a schedule 9 months after deployment of this. And it's kind of funny, but it highlights a real issue, which is getting staff on board. And I mentioned that agents aren't going to be and staff aren't going to be replaced by AI, but they might be replaced by other staff or other agents that are better trained on AI. Because once that happened, it took 3 days down to 75 minutes to create a schedule in WFM. So inspection and adjustment and making sure the teams are enabled is the key to success.
Yeah, for sure. I guess the thing I would add there, Eric, is I mentioned this during Tim and I's conversation today. I think two things. One, the thing that's driven a lack of success that I've seen in the past has been, again, I use this word monolithic a lot, companies going after these massive, massive projects that are meant to address the AI hopes and dreams of every department across the business, and it's just not realistic, and it's not necessary. Those things can be done. First of all, that all can be broken down into bite-sized chunks, but it's getting the entire organization on board. That's great, but trying to do everything at once is not. It's too disruptive, and I think Tim's example, you have a much longer arc to reach success, and by the time you reach that point, the business has changed, AI has changed, people are leaving the business. You need to be focused, and so I think it's also really prudent for execs to see outcomes, to actually see, oh, you did something in a quarter, and it moved the needle. How? Okay, let's do more of that. And the second thing I would say that's made these things not as successful as they could have been in the past is thinking about AI in kind of a vacuum without access to key data and without being integrated into key systems. I think the one thing that makes employees in a business do what they do so well is because they have access to the right information and they have multiple systems to get their job done. Sometimes there's too many, but the point is that AI needs the same thing. It needs access to that data and it needs to have agency to be able to access systems, to be able to perform tasks. And I think having that systemic approach will make this project much more successful.
All right, great. Thanks very much, Tim. And we're going to have to leave it at that. We're at time.
The hour here.
Yes, we are. But thanks for the great presentations and the answers to the questions. Thanks to Verint for sponsoring this and everyone in the audience for attending. We appreciate your attention and participation. Within the next 24 hours, you'll receive a personalized follow-up email with details and a link to today's presentation on demand. Please feel free to share that link with colleagues and peers so that they can also benefit from the webinar. This webinar is copyrighted by Informa. The presentation materials are owned by or copyrighted by Enterprise Connect and Verint, and the individual speakers are solely responsible for their content and their opinions. So on behalf of our guests, I'm Eric Kraft. Thanks for your time and have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Tim.